whilst we are still on our lockdown. I want to speak on a message titled Dealing with Personal Toxic Prayers. Dealing with personal toxic prayers. That is the message that I'm going to be speaking on, and that is what I'm actually going to be speaking on tonight. Dealing with personal toxic prayers. Dealing with personal toxic prayers. We are going to be reading our main scripture for this mini series. I'm not going to take long. I'm not going to take much of your time. Remember, I said this is a series that I'll be throwing here and there every Friday evening until our lockdown is over. So it's dealing with personal toxic prayers. Dealing with personal toxic prayers. I want you to understand, and I want you to know and to see that in your life, it's not just the witches and the wizards who can bring bad luck upon your lives, or who can bring a hindrance to your prayers, but it can also be you yourself, or maybe if you are married as a couple, or if you are single, you as an individual, you can bring a hindrance to the answering of your prayers in your life. So we are going to read from the book of 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. That's the main scripture that we are going to be using there. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. I know it's a scripture that talks about marriage, but I'm not necessarily going to be dealing with marriage issues here. But when I talk about marriage in this regard, or in this message, I'll be talking about how you can affect your prayers even through your marriage. So I'll be speaking from the book of 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Just continue inviting other people. Make watch parties and tell them the man of God is live. And I'm speaking on dealing with personal toxic prayers, because there are lots of people whom I have met who talk to me and they say, "Man of God, when it comes to prayer, I am a warrior and I know that. But the rate at which my prayers are being answered is not as good as I expect, especially when I'm looking at myself as a person who loves God, as a person who believes in God, as a person who does every other thing." So sometimes you need to go into your heart and begin to search what is the toxic prayer that is opposing your prayers that you are giving unto God. So 1 Peter chapter 3, I'll just read verse 7. I'm sorry about my voice there. "Likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. Likewise," I repeat, "likewise, you husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered." That your prayers may not be hindered. Where we have read here, Peter is giving an instruction to husbands, and he's telling them to dwell with their wives according to knowledge. Peter is saying, dwell with your wives according to knowledge. But before I enter into what the scripture is saying, let me just maybe talk about prayer a little bit. When you are defining prayer, or when you are talking about prayer, you are talking about speaking or communicating with God. Communicating with God. When you are praying, you are communicating with God. Here I have said prayer is an involving means of interacting with God, which means prayer is an involving means of interacting with God. If you understand the power of prayer, it is the only means and the only way that you can interact with God. So prayer is an involving means of interacting with God, and it is a method of changing situations for the better. So prayer, when you are praying, we are expecting situations to be changed for the better. So prayer is a method of changing situations for the better, and it involves interaction with God. So when you are praying, number one, you are interacting with God, and when you are praying, number two, you are changing situations for the better, which then means to say, when you pray, you are supposed to see a difference in the situations of your life, a difference in the things that you are praying for. If you are asking God to do something for you, prayer is supposed to make you see the results of what you are asking God to do in your life. So, number one, the things that I want you to understand when we are talking about prayer is that, number one, by prayer, we relate to God. By prayer, we relate to God, which means we are relating to the God of our fathers. We are relating to our Father who is in heaven through prayer. So prayer brings a relationship with God. So the moment you begin to understand that when you are praying, you are building a relationship with God, you need to begin to understand that when you need to make sure that there is purity in your heart, there is purity in your spirit, and there is purity in your environment for your prayers to be able to be heard by God. I want to tell you something that I once did when I started going to the gym. I began to lift some little bit of weights, but when you are lifting weights, there are ways that are easier for you. You can fail to lift one weight in another way, but manage to lift it in another way. And then the instructor spoke to me and he said, the way you are lifting that one, you are not lifting it. You are actually cheating. And I said, what do you mean by cheating? And then he said, you are not doing it the right way. So you will be very happy that I'm lifting a 25 kg weight, but you are not directing the effort to the muscle, which means to say every weight that you lift when you are doing weightlifting, you are supposed to be directing the effort to a certain muscle. But if you are not directing the effort to a certain muscle, you are not doing anything. You are actually cheating yourself. That is sometimes what we do with prayer. You can go for prayer for 7 days and 7 nights, but doing it in a wrong way, praying amiss or misdirecting the effort, putting the effort to the wrong muscle. I want you to understand that there are those who pray and the effort is hitting the right muscle, but there are those who pray and the effort is not hitting any muscle. So you can be lifting weights, trying to hit the muscle, the bicep, trying to make your bicep stronger, but you're actually damaging your back. So instead of being fit after lifting your muscles, you begin to wonder why there is pain all over in your body. There is pain on your back, yet you were working on the muscles in your shoulders and on your hands. So that is the same thing as prayer. So when we are praying, number one, we are connecting or we are relating with God. So prayer connects you. Prayer makes you relate with God. So when you are not feeling that connection with God, you need sometimes to ask yourself, is my prayer worth it? What am I doing? What am I supposed to do in order for me to be connected with God? Remember, we are talking about dealing with personal toxic prayers. So today I'm not going to talk about things that are being thrown upon you by witches and wizards and by occultists and any other person. But I'm talking about things that you are throwing at yourself that are coming to become a hindrance to your prayers. So that's the first thing. By prayer, we relate to God. And secondly, prayer challenges us to grow. The next thing that you need to do when you are praying is to ask yourself, am I growing spiritually? Am I growing in my Christian life? That is because everyone who prays is supposed to grow. Prayer is supposed to bring growth in your life. Prayer is supposed to bring growth in your spiritual life. So are you growing? Am I growing? As I'm praying every day, am I seeing growth in my life? Am I experiencing growth in my life? Those things, you as a child of God, you must be a personal auditor of your life. Don't wait for someone to come and knock off it on your door and say, I want to prophesy upon your life. You are not growing. See it. You see growth. You see whether you're growing or whether you're not growing. So you need to do that. Then the third thing that prayer does is that it challenges you to change. You cannot pray and remain the same. You cannot be a prayerful person and remain the same. You cannot be a prayerful person and continue to be in conflict with people each and every day of your life. You cannot be a prayerful person and continue to be the most argumentative person on campus if you are at university, or the most feared person at work, because they know that no one should touch you because the way you can speak to them is not very good. So prayer, when you are praying, you must see change in your life. You must experience change in your life. Prayer is something that is supposed to come into your life, that is supposed to come and challenge you to change. So you must see change as you continue to pray in your life. Then the last thing that prayer does is that it challenges you to love. Prayer must challenge you to love. The Bible in the book of John chapter 3 verse 16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So the reason why we are able to connect with God is because he loved us. So the connection that you have with God was made through love. So when you are praying to God, you are praying, you are going into a connection that was brought into existence by love. The connection that we have with God was brought into existence by love. Do you love your brother? Do you love your sister? Do you love any other person around you in your life? Where is hatred coming into? Where is hatred coming from in your heart when you are a prayerful person, when you are a prayer warrior? So I want you to understand that prayer must challenge you to love. In this period of the COVID-19, where people are isolated, there is that person who stays alone. Have you ever called them to just ask them how they are doing? Have you ever called them to just hear how their life is going around? That brother who has lost his job, have you ever bothered to ask him if all is well? That is what prayer must challenge you to do. Actually, James say, what good are you doing when someone is coming to you and they are saying, I have no jersey and I'm cold, I have no clothes, and then you pray for them and you say, may God bless you, may God do well unto you. Sometimes you don't even need to utter the word, you need to show the action. You need to speak to that brother, you need to speak to that sister, and you need to give them that which they are looking for, if you can afford. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So that is prayer. I said, number one, it involves a means of interacting with God, and it is a method of changing situations for the better. And prayer challenges. So I said the other points that I put under prayer there is that by prayer we are relating to God. Prayer challenges us to grow. Prayer challenges us to love. And prayer challenges us to change. Those are the things that prayer is supposed to do upon our lives. But remember, I said the title of my message is dealing with toxic prayers, or dealing with personal toxic prayers in your life. What are those that I'm talking about here? So I'm not just talking about prayer as it is, but I'm talking about those personal toxic prayers in your life. How do you deal with them? But before I tell you how, or before I tell you how they come into your life, I want you to understand what they are. So here, we are not talking about negative prayers. Remember, I said this in the beginning. We are not talking about negative prayers that are coming from the devil, or from the occultists, or from the witches. Those prayers that are coming to hinder your progress. Like the prayer that Balaam and Balak wanted to do against the children of Israel, which bounced in the spirit. Those negative prayers, if you live a righteous life, if you live a life according to the will of God, those negative prayers can never come to affect your life. But they are personal toxic prayers. These are personal prayers that you are subconsciously praying, but you don't know about them. So after you have done your your conscious prayer. There are some subconscious prayers that you are making in your lives that are coming to hinder the personal prayer that you are making to God. So I said here, we are not necessarily talking about prayers that are directed to you by occult or evil people, but we are talking about prayers that you subconsciously make for yourself. And we are talking about prayers that come to hinder the positive prayers that you pray to God every day. So as you are praying to God every day, those are positive prayers. As you are praying to God every day, those are healthy prayers. But there are toxic prayers that come to hinder the healthy prayers that you are praying to God every day. What are those prayers? And how do they come into your life? What are those prayers? And how do they come into your life? The first toxic prayer that you need to deal with in your life is a toxic or strained relationship between couples. So if you are married and you are having a strained relationship in your marriage, that strained relationship is going to become a secret or a subconscious negative prayer in your life. Which means to say, because here where we have read in the book of Peter, he said, husbands, dwell with them in knowledge, or with knowledge, that your prayers may not be hindered. Which means to say, the conflict that is happening in the marriage between the two people is not only a conflict that is going to make them to be angry to each other, but it is a conflict that is going to be hindering the prayers, that is going to be hindering whatsoever. So a conflict in marriage becomes a reversal of the positive prayers that you are praying unto God. So the first point is strained relationships between couples. I'm not in a couples seminar here, but I'm talking about prayer. So I know you might be listening right now and you are not married. Don't say this is not for me. One day you are going to be married. You've got to know that every action in your marriage has got consequences. Don't just wish to see things. Don't take pride in being angry for your spouse. Don't take pride in being angry for 6-7 days. Take pride in resolving issues and forgiving each other. Because the moment you are going to continue being angry for your husband or for your wife, you are hindering prayers. So if my wife is angry for me and I was praying that God may promote her at a workplace, or I was praying that our lives may be improved, the anger is becoming a toxicity. The anger is becoming a toxic substance that fights against prayers in our lives. So the anger is becoming a prayer. But a prayer in the negative. It is coming to fight the positive prayers that you are all doing. So you might go for 7 days and 7 nights of prayer, and then the next thing is you don't even forgive each other. The next thing, you don't resolve issues against you. You are coming back from that prayer and you are not even talking to each other. You have been praying, but you have also been empowering demons in your marriage to come and fight it. So the first thing, or the first toxic prayer that you need to deal with when you are in a marriage is the conflict, or this restraint, or the strained relationship between you and your spouse, between you and your wife, between you and your husband. Those toxic relationships must always be dealt with. Remember the Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 27 says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. This is God. He was blessing them together. He was releasing a blessing upon them together. Which means when there is a conflict, there is a fight against the blessing in the marriage, against the blessing which the Lord has released upon you as a married people. So you need to understand that everything you do in your marriage, everything you say in your marriage is coming and is coming either to empower your prayer life or to fight your prayer life. So before you go for those 3 days and 3 nights as a couple, iron out those issues that that are between you, those financial issues, those relational issues, those couple issues, or issues that I'm talking about. Iron them out before you decide to go to God in prayer. I hope someone is understanding me. So the first thing that you need to understand when you are dealing with, when you are praying, the first poison in any people who are married, the first poison that attacks prayer in your life is your relationship. If your relationship is not right, if your relationship is not good, if your relationship is not perfect, it becomes a poison that fights all the prayers that you are making unto God. I hope someone is understanding me. You can just type amen if you are hearing what I'm saying right now. And then Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. Two are better than one because they have a good return to their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? This is Ecclesiastes. So two are better than one. So when you are going for prayer and there is a harmony in your marriage, where you were supposed to be praying for 30 minutes, the 30 minutes that you pray, God will count them as 1 hour because you are one person. Each part of one person is prayed for 30 minutes, and that makes it 1 hour. So prayer becomes easier when people are happy in their marriage. So this is the first poison to prayer. This is the first toxic substance to prayer that I'm going to give you today. It is the bad relationship, or the fight within a marriage. So if your relationship is not good, if your relationship is not perfect, that is the first challenge, or that is the first poison that comes into your marriage, into your life, to attack prayer. So remove every strain in your marriage. And once you have done that, you are in your way to empower your prayer life. Because remember, prayer is the strongest weapon that God has delivered unto the saints. So as you pray, as you ask God, ask yourself, is everything okay in my marriage? Is everything okay in my heart toward my spouse, toward my partner? Is everything okay in my heart? So that is the first thing that I'm going to talk about today. Thank you so much for joining me. I just want to pray for, even if you are a couple that is watching right now, because my first point today was talking about prayer, was talking about a perfect relationship. I just want to pray unto you. Just hold hands with your spouse. If you're a couple that have joined us today, just hold hands with your spouse. If you are not a couple, if you are alone, if you are not yet married, I just want you to hold your heart, because I believe God one day is going to give you a marriage partner. And I just want you to bow your head, and I will pray and ask God to perfect your marriage, to perfect your relationship, to perfect your future marriage, that your marriage may not become a poison to your prayers. Let us go before God and pray. Father, I want to thank you for each and every one of your children who has joined us tonight. I want to pray, my God, that you may visit their marriages, that you may become a God who releases instructions into that marriage, that nothing is going to hinder their prayer lives, that nothing is going to hinder nothing that happens in that marriage is going to be a poison that attacks the prayers that they are making every day, that attacks the fastings that they are making every day. Father, I release the grace of a perfect marriage upon each and every couple who is